You know how some people wake up one morning, check their credit score, and find out they've been the victim of a Nigerian prince scam? Cute. I woke up, logged into my credit report, and found out I apparently co-own a $320,000 suburban palace with my brother, a man whose last financial plan was to invest in crypto right before it tanked. My name, my credit, my financial future tied up with someone who once bought a $600 gaming chair instead of paying rent. And the best part? I never signed a single thing. Not a pen mark, not a click. Nada. If this isn't betrayal, I don't know what is. But of course, in my family, betrayal wears khakis, drinks Folgers coffee, and says things like, "We just did it for the good of the family." The call to the bank was educational. A woman with a voice like she'd been personally hired to ruin dreams told me they had my digital signature and a power of attorney conveniently provided by, wait for it, my parents. The same people who once grounded me for using their Netflix account without asking had now casually put me on the hook for 30 years of debt. And this wasn't even a cute tiny house or a beachfront cottage. No, this was a beige two-story in a neighborhood with a homeowners association so strict they fine you for having the wrong shade of mulch. When I confronted them that night, they were sitting at the kitchen table like two mob bosses waiting to reason with me. My dad led with, "It's all for family. We had to help your brother." My mom added, "He couldn't qualify a loan, and you have such good credit. You should be proud." Proud, like it was a scholarship or a medal. I asked them when exactly they were planning to tell me, and my dad just shrugged. "It's not like you were using your credit for anything important." That's when it hit me. My own parents had basically cheated on me with my credit score. This was financial infidelity, and I was the wronged spouse. Here's the thing. In America, your credit score is like your dating profile. It's the first thing lenders see before deciding if you're worth a long-term relationship. Mine had been a strong, independent woman, solid 780, good income-to-debt ratio, until my parents whored her out to a mortgage she didn't even want. Now she was limping along like someone fresh out of a toxic love affair, dragging baggage she didn't ask for. I told them I was going to the police. My mom gasped like I'd just said I was joining a cult. My dad leaned back, arms crossed, with that look that says, "You won't do it." That was when the revenge part of my brain, the part that usually only comes out when I'm dealing with cheating exes, snapped awake. I wasn't just going to get my name off that loan, I was going to make them regret ever thinking they could run a con like this on me. Of course, my lawyer was fascinated. He said he'd seen identity theft cases, but family-on-family mortgage fraud was a spicy new flavor. He told me to freeze my credit, file disputes with all 3 bureaus, and get the bank to cough up every scrap of data they had, IP addresses, notary logs, the works. This is where the conspiracy theories started forming, because according to the records, my digital signature came from the IP address of my parents' house, right around the time I was posting Instagram stories from a completely different state, which meant one thing. Either my parents had mastered interdimensional travel, or they forged it. And honestly, with my family, I wouldn't rule out a blood oath with some shady notary in a strip mall behind the Waffle House. By the end of the week, my kitchen table looked like a crime scene investigation board. Printouts, arrows, sticky notes. I was piecing together a timeline, finding little clues. My brother suddenly buying a new grill. My dad muttering about interest rates. My mom accidentally mentioning when we closed on the house. They'd been sloppy. And in America, sloppy criminals get caught, not by the FBI, but by angry relatives with a printer and a grudge. But here's the twist. I wasn't going to start the story by telling anyone about the loan. No, I was going to start by telling people I'd been financially kidnapped by my own flesh and blood, that my credit score had been taken hostage, that this was the kind of betrayal that would make a Hallmark family movie if Hallmark made films about toxic love and mortgage fraud. I'd make it funny, I'd make it tragic, and then, when they least expected it, I'd hit them with the fact that this all really happened. Because if you want revenge in America, you don't just get even. You make it a story everyone wants to hear. And trust me, this story was just getting started. I'll admit, there's a certain thrill in getting a call from the bank that starts with, "We need to discuss your missed mortgage payment," especially when you don't own a mortgage. I mean, that's not panic you're hearing in my voice, that's pure adrenaline. It's like getting a text from your ex saying, "We need to talk," right after you've posted a vacation selfie. You know whatever's coming is going to be messy, possibly involve betrayal, and might even ruin your week in the most American way possible. But let's rewind 72 hours earlier, because this is where the plot really thickens. Picture this. I'm sitting in my car outside a Chick-fil-A eating waffle fries when my brother calls. His voice is shaky, like a man who's just realized the free iPad he ordered online is actually a brick in a box. He says, "So, the bank might call you, but don't freak out. It's just a small hiccup with the mortgage." Small hiccup? That's like calling a cheating scandal an oopsie or a Category 5 hurricane a breezy day. I ask him how a mortgage with my name on it could possibly have a hiccup when I've never paid or agreed to pay a dime on it. That's when he spills it. He missed a payment because his girlfriend/roommate, toxic love interest number 47 in his dating history, accidentally spent the mortgage money on a trip to Vegas. She claimed it was for a business conference, but the only business involved was her hooking up with a blackjack dealer named Tony. This is the level of cheating that makes you wonder if toxic love is hereditary. Now, here's where the conspiracy theory part of my brain starts revving like a Harley at a biker rally. What if this wasn't just bad luck? What if my parents and my brother had been running a whole side hustle where they use my credit to fund their bad decisions, knowing I'm too loyal to family to press charges? I imagine a dimly lit basement with a corkboard full of my bank statements, my social security number on a sticky note, and my mom saying, "Operation Free House is a go." That night I drove over to my parents' house, ready for round 2 of the kitchen table showdown. They were watching Wheel of Fortune like nothing had happened. I turned off the TV mid-spin and said, "We need to talk." My dad sighed, the way he does when he knows he's about to be confronted with his own bad choices. My mom did her trademark innocent eyes routine, which works on waiters and small children, but not on me. I laid it all out. The missed payment, the girlfriend's Vegas fling, the fact that my credit score now looked like it had been through a divorce and 3 custody battles. My dad hit me with, "Well, your brother made a mistake, but family is about forgiveness." I reminded him that family is also about not committing financial fraud together, but apparently that's just my opinion. The next day, I met with my lawyer again, who at this point was treating my case like a Netflix limited series. We ordered full mortgage records from the bank, and that's when the real smoking gun showed up. The verification call for my digital signature had come from my parents' landline. Not my cell. Not my office. Their dusty old cordless phone that's probably been sitting on the counter since 2004. It was the legal equivalent of finding a bloody glove in someone's backyard. Now the revenge part wasn't just an option, it was the main course. My lawyer drafted a demand letter that basically said, "Either refinance this loan and get my client's name off it within 30 days, or we'll see you in court for fraud, damages, and the pleasure of explaining this to a judge who's seen way worse but still thinks you're dumb." I mailed it certified, just so I could track the exact moment my mom signed for it and realized her cozy little family con had gone federal. While we waited for a response, I started picturing the courtroom scenes in my head. I'd walk in wearing the smug grin of someone whose enemies are about to face the music. My parents and brother would sit at the defense table, whispering frantically, while I coolly presented the evidence like I was auditioning for a true crime documentary. The judge would raise an eyebrow at the forged signature, the fake power of attorney, and the Vegas receipts and say, "I've seen toxic love, I've seen cheating, but this is a family betrayal wrapped in a mortgage scam." But of course, reality always throws in one last plot twist. A week before the deadline, my brother called again, not to apologize, but to ask if I could spot him this month's payment so he wouldn't fall behind while they worked things out. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. "Spot you?" I said. "Buddy, the only thing I'm spotting is your downfall, and it's in HD." I hung up, knowing full well the 30 days were going to pass without them doing a damn thing. Which was perfect, because that meant Part 3, the courtroom chaos, was about to begin. The bailiff had just called my name when I realized this was it. The moment I'd been fantasizing about since the day I found out I was the unwilling co-star in my family's little mortgage soap opera. I walked into that courtroom like I was strutting down a runway, except instead of wearing designer clothes, I was wrapped in pure, unfiltered revenge. The defendants? My mom, my dad, and my brother, all lined up like contestants on a game show called Who Wants to Avoid Prison? Spoiler, none of them were going to win. But let's rewind 48 hours, because the build-up to this was almost better than the trial itself. The 30-day deadline had come and gone without so much as a "we're sorry" or "we'll fix it." My lawyer had the court filings ready like a chef holding a soufflé at the perfect temperature. We were suing for fraudulent misrepresentation, damages to my credit, emotional distress, and the pièce de résistance, a court order forcing them to refinance the mortgage without me. Basically, I was asking the legal system to divorce me from a toxic love triangle between my family, my credit score, and a house I'd never even slept in. The bank, to their credit, pun intended, had finally coughed up everything. Call recordings from the verification process, IP logs showing the e-signature came from my parents' Wi-Fi, and the notary's logbook with handwriting so bad it looked like a ransom note. It was the kind of evidence that in any good American courtroom drama would cue a dramatic zoom in and a slow gasp from the jury. And yes, there was a jury. 12 ordinary citizens, all staring at us like they'd just been told they were going to binge-watch a season of Family Betrayal. Mortgage Edition. One woman in the front row was already shaking her head like she'd seen this exact episode play out with her own cousin. My lawyer opened strong. "Ladies and gentlemen, my client never signed this loan, never consented to it. Yet here they are, responsible for a $320,000 debt because their own parents forged documents and lied to a bank. If that's not betrayal, I don't know what is." You could practically hear the collective gasp. My dad avoided eye contact. My mom dabbed her eyes with a tissue, and my brother sat there looking like a man who'd just realized his toxic Vegas girlfriend wasn't going to show up to support him in court. Then came the pièce de résistance, the call recording. The jury heard my dad's voice, cool as a cucumber. "Yes, my child authorized me to sign for them." My lawyer paused the audio, looked at the jury, and said, "My client was 1,500 miles away at the time, posting a selfie with a giant slice of New York pizza. Unless my client teleported back to sign that mortgage, this was fraud. Now, because I have a flair for the dramatic, and because revenge tastes better when it's served with a side of public humiliation, I'd asked my lawyer to bring visual aids. Big, poster-sized credit reports showing my perfect 780 score before the mortgage, and the sad, battered 620 after. It was like a before and after makeover, but in reverse. The jury winced. The bank's lawyer tried to play the "it's a family matter" card, as if family was some magical get-out-of-jail-free pass. But the judge, a woman who looked like she'd sent her own son to jail for less, wasn't having it. "Family is no excuse for fraud," she said, hammering each word like a nail in my parents' coffin. By the time I took the stand, I was ready to unload. I told them about the phone call from the bank, the kitchen table confrontation, the Vegas trip, and the weeks of stonewalling. I sprinkled in just enough sarcasm to make the jury chuckle, because nothing bonds strangers faster than a shared appreciation for absurdity. I called it financial kidnapping, credit cheating, and the worst group project I've ever been forced into. Then came my favorite part. My lawyer requested sanctions, meaning not only would my parents have to get me off the mortgage, they might have to pay my legal fees and damages for the apartment I lost because of their little stunt. The judge nodded slowly, clearly savoring the drama. The bank's lawyer asked for a recess to discuss settlement terms. Translation: my family was cornered, the walls were closing in, and they were scrambling for a way to get out before the gavel came down. As we filed out of the courtroom for the break, my brother whispered, "We can still work this out, right?" I smiled sweetly. "Oh, we're going to work it out," in a way you'll never forget. Because here's the thing about revenge in America. The best kind isn't loud or violent, it's procedural, it's filed in triplicate, and it ends with your enemies paying for the privilege of losing to you. The recess was over. The judge called us back in. And that's when the final act of this family drama began. We walked back into the courtroom after the recess like it was the final episode of a reality show. The jury looked refreshed, the judge looked mildly entertained, and my family looked like they'd aged 10 years in 20 minutes. My dad's tie was crooked, my mom's mascara had migrated south, and my brother had that 1,000-yard stare of a man realizing the Vegas girlfriend had unfollowed him on Instagram mid-trial. The bank's lawyer cleared his throat and announced, "Your Honor, we've reached a settlement." Now, in courtroom speak, settlement can mean anything from "we made peace" to "we've given up and agreed to be publicly shamed for cash." This one was somewhere in between, except with a plot twist so delicious I almost asked for popcorn. Here's the deal. My parents would refinance the mortgage immediately, removing my name entirely. They'd pay all my legal fees, plus damages for the apartment I lost, the higher insurance premiums, and emotional distress, aka the sleepless nights imagining my credit score sobbing in a corner. My brother, bless his financially incompetent heart, would either refinance in his own name or sell the house within 90 days. And, here's the kicker, the judge ordered them to liquidate non-essential assets to make it happen. Which in suburban America basically meant say goodbye to your lake cabin, your RV, and your investment in that timeshare in Florida you never used. The look on my dad's face when the words "sell the lake cabin" hit? Priceless. That cabin was his temple, his getaway, his sacred man cave where he could grill burgers and pretend the HOA didn't exist. My mom let out a soft gasp, like she'd just been told her favorite soap opera was canceled mid-season. And my brother? He muttered something about unfair and bad timing, which was rich coming from a guy who thought buying a jet ski was more important than paying the mortgage. The judge, clearly savoring the drama, leaned forward. "In my courtroom," she said, "family loyalty does not override the law. This was a betrayal, plain and simple, and the consequence is yours to bear." If there'd been background music, this was the part where a single violin played while the camera panned across their devastated faces. Walking out of that courthouse was like stepping into a new life. My lawyer handed me the signed agreement, and I swear I heard the faint sound of a cash register ka-ching. My credit score wasn't fixed yet, but the poison was draining out. I could breathe. A week later, I drove past the house I'd been co-owner of for 6 ridiculous months. The lawn was patchy, the blinds crooked, and a sad for sale sign tilted in the front yard. Poetic justice. I didn't stop. I didn't need to. That chapter was closed. The real kicker came when I got the check for damages. It wasn't enough to retire on, but it was enough for first and last month's rent on a new apartment, a brand new couch, and, because I'm petty, a gold-framed print for my living room that says, "Don't sign anything, ever." I sent my parents a photo of it. No caption, just the picture. Of course my mom called. She wanted to talk things through and move past this. I told her I was open to a conversation, as long as it came with a notarized statement that she would never, ever put my name on anything without my permission again. She sighed, said I was being too American about this, which honestly I took as a compliment. In this country, protecting yourself, even from your own family, isn't cold, it's survival. People ask me if I forgave them. The answer is complicated. I don't hate them, but I also don't forget that they cheated on my trust with my own credit score. And like any bad relationship, any toxic love, you can wish them well from a safe distance while keeping your bank accounts on lockdown. The lesson? Revenge doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be screaming matches or throwing plates. Sometimes it's calmly walking into court, laying out the facts, and letting the system do what it does best, crush bad decisions under the weight of legal precedent. And if that happens to cost someone their beloved lake cabin, Well, maybe next time they'll think twice before forging signatures. The last thing I did before closing this saga was check my credit score. It had already climbed 40 points, not perfect yet, but free of the toxic baggage. Like a person fresh out of a cheating relationship, I was healing, stronger, smarter, and slightly more suspicious of anyone who says, "Trust me, it's for the family." Because now I know the truth. In America, family is sacred, right up until they mess with your mortgage. Then it's every man for himself.